Hello, today I'm just having a quick look at my settings on my videos because I've not been happy with them. So it's a good opportunity to have a look at one or two more extended techniques such as direct painting and being a bit more loose, and negative painting to create the object that we're trying to produce. But to start with, what I'm going to do is wet thoroughly the paper that I'm using. It's a £200 watercolour paper, and I'm using my professional mixed media paints. But as you see, I'm going to start applying colour. I start very light in this sense because I just want a really light colourful background. So this first layer of colour will be very light and lots of blends of colours. I started with a very light yellow, and I'm going to put some blue in there, and there'll be several colours, and what it is, it's there to create an atmospheric background. And you can be as, I'm trying to be deliberate, but you can be as expressive as you want with this because it's just a colour background really. But the thing is with this, it should always kind of blend and naturally flow into one another. And I'm using a hake brush for that. One of the things about loose painting is try and use as big a brush as you possibly can. And as you can see, the colours are now, because I've wet the paper prior to painting, are all starting to create nice blends. And what we will do once I've finished this layer, I'll allow it to dry for a good period of time and make sure that it's thoroughly dry. I've let that dry now. I'm creating on the palette a strong colour so that we can start producing directly onto the paper the artwork that we're going to be doing. And I'm nearly there. I'm creating like a very dark purpley blue, and what I'm doing is I'm basically drawing directly onto the paper rather than using a pencil drawing and going round it. And this is where negative painting comes in. I've created the object on the inside that looks light by creating dark areas around it. That is what you call negative painting. And you'll see in a moment that I'm also creating another object that will slowly but surely turn into something that we can recognise. And again, that's working the negative side of the actual image itself. And hopefully by now you can potentially see someone speaking into or singing into a microphone. And that is it. I've created an image without actually painting the actual thing itself. That is negative painting, and I'm doing it in a very loose way, in a manner called direct painting, where you do not use any drawing prior to painting. I don't want it to just be one dull background colour. I want the dark areas to have interest as well, so I will apply bits of colour into that. Although the very dark areas, they are literally pitch black, so you can't really see an awful lot. But application of some colour will help the painting with its interest. And this is the first layer of several layers that will help build that up. Don't be afraid to actually work dark with this kind of painting, because watercolour always goes that bit lighter when it dries. And as you can see, I've applied a little bit of red there because I wanted it to seem as though there was some red light coming into the darkness and hitting various parts of the face and the microphone. So it just adds that extra bit of interest. And one thing that you can actually do to make a watercolour painting more loose is the paper that you're using, make the brush a lot larger than what it ought to be, and you get less control then, so you work big and it gives you a looser feel. So we're going to let that dry now. Now it's dry, notice how much it's lightened up. So we're now going to define other areas using that negative technique again, but with a darker, stronger consistency of paint. This will help define other areas of the painting. He's actually playing a guitar, so that's the neck of the guitar that you can see, although in the actual reference image you can barely see it because of the darkness. But it is an interesting feature and helps towards the narrative of the painting itself. And it's a continuation of creating layers that get progressively darker and stronger in pigment value. Another thing that's actually worth thinking about when you're doing a watercolour painting is how to link various sections of the painting together so you have one cohesive piece of work rather than lots of separated colours. And this layer is an ideal one to be able to create links between the various different parts of the painting. I'm starting to paint darker areas of the face and create detailed parts, so I've got a rough idea where I'm going to be putting the rest of the face. And again, there's no pencil drawings here. I'm going direct into the paper and painting directly onto it. And this guy is a pretty bearded guy, so I'm going to get the early formations of some sort of beard in there. And carving out these areas will really help create that three-dimensional feel that we want for the painting. As you can see, I'm using a fairly dark, strong blue colour here, and I'm painting again with the big brush, and I'm not looking at hyper detail. I'm looking at blocking the areas in, and I've just done the air there, and the dark areas I've put in help create the highlights for the air that's being lit up by a spotlight or whatever it may be. And I'm then going in and re-emphasising the underside of the chin, as that more often than not is dark. And we can get this grey blue colour. I would imagine you could just create it with a dark blue, or Payne's grey, or even adding a bit of brown to a ultramarine blue. But remember I mentioned earlier in the tutorial that I wanted some sort of ready light hitting it. Well, I'm going to re-emphasize that by putting areas of light that is a bright orange or red or whatever. You can put whatever colour you want in, but it helps with that carving out of the face, that, and the believability of the rest of the painting. If there's continuations of a particular colour throughout the painting. If you feel that there's an edge that's a bit strong, you can do what I've just done there and add a little bit of water and soften up any part that you feel needs to be softened up a little bit. At this stage of the painting, it is a good idea to slow the pace down a little bit so that you can give the paint a small amount of time to maybe dry a little bit. And again, I'm going to go over that dark area as is always the case with watercolour. It's lightened up again, so you have to keep emphasizing that and going over it layer by layer and really adding that extra bit to create a darker area. And again, it's still using that negative painting technique, and there hasn't been one pencil drawing here. It's all been direct to the paper with the paint. And again, I'm not leaving it all one block colour. And as you can see, I'm also attempting to try and make sure that the strokes are quite brushy and strokey, so that you get a painterly kind of image. Now we've got the majority of the painting done, we could go down to a smaller brush and start doing detail work, but I'm going to continue on with this brush, and I'm just trying to give the suggestion that there's a little bit of highlight on the hand, on the fingers where the guitarist is holding the guitar. I don't want to be doing detail because it's not a detailed painting and I want it loose, but you can use that throughout to create little bits of highlight, and that's just by putting water onto your brush and pulling off some of the paint that's already laid down. That will depend on the quality of your paper. Not all papers are very good at doing this, but this particular paper is. So I'm re-emphasising the dark area around the guy's beard and round his face and what have you, and we're not that far away from completion in this picture. I didn't intend it to be some great super detailed piece of image. I just wanted to do something loose to practice and have a look at the quality of my video, because last few videos I've been doing, they've just not been sharp enough and they didn't have the colour that I wanted. So it's been good for me to have a look at resetting my equipment back up and getting the best quality that I possibly can. One last area just to give it that extra bit of strength in the detailed areas, if you want to call them details, is I'm going to use a really dark strong blue again, just to emphasize those areas that I want to show off. And hopefully that's helping to give that three-dimensional feel. I mean, I could work on this a lot more and do an awful lot more with the image, but as it's a loose image, I don't really want to do that much more with it. I'm just doing bits of detail really now, and again I wanted to darken that up, so I've got a little bit more of that to do, and that is the painting virtually complete. We're almost using dry brush technique now, so we're at an end. So thank you for the video, watching the video, and we'll see you again.